All right. Hi, everyone. I guess we'll get started as people keep coming in. Let me share my screen again. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this 5th edition of the Water and Communications program. Water and Communication is founded by the Grundfos Foundation, and I would like to give a personal thanks to Anne Bisgaard Christensen and Virginia Newton-Lewis, who made this program possible. Before we get started, I would invite you to choose the language you want to hear this meeting in. So whether you want to hear in English, in Spanish, or Arabic, we have our interpreters today with us. So from the Zoom bar at the bottom, you should see the interpretation with the globe icon. If you don't see it, it might be under More. So make sure to look for interpretation in your Zoom menu, and then you will be able to look into the English, Spanish, or Arabic language. So that's to ensure that we can hear each other properly and we can communicate in the language that is the most comfortable for us. Today we have reached a record number of registrants for Water and Communications. We have over 1,600 registrants. So first of all, a big thank you to everyone who's here, who's interested in this program. But you can understand that with such a big amount of people, we won't be able to hear from everyone all the time in the sessions. Although we are really curious to hear about you, to hear from you. So if you want to send questions and comments in the chat, feel free to do that. We'll try to attend to that as much as possible. Yeah, and you can always email me at cecile.hugh@siwi.org if you need anything, or chat in this window. Speaking of which, this is me, Cecile Pilon-Hugh. I will be your host for the next 8 sessions. I'm a communicator. I've been working in communications for about 15 years now, specialized in environmental, social, and gender issues. And today I'm with Sheifumi Adebote, who's an environmental and communicator specialist, and he's been helping me to shape this program, and today he's behind the scene to ensure that everything runs smoothly for you all. So feel free to message him as well on the side if you need any assistance. And thank you, Shay, for your support today.
Thank you, and welcome everyone.
Before we dive into today's session, and I'll welcome the first speakers of this program, I just want to give you a quick overview of the program. As I said, we have 8 sessions starting from today, every Tuesday and Thursdays. Every session is 1.5 hours, except the workshop on June 12th. That would be 2 hours. If you're here, it means that you found your Zoom link. So congratulations on that. Make sure to save this email or to bookmark this link in a safe place, because it will be the same link for all sessions. So you can come back every Tuesday and Thursday on the same link. Although the program is 8 sessions, all the sessions are optional, so you can choose to attend which ones that are the most interesting for you. Although for the workshop parts on Thursdays, yes, I would recommend you to attend the full session, to really dedicate the time to the full session, to really get the most out of it and really enjoy the methodology the fullest. All the panels and presentations will be recorded, so you can have access to that in your own time. Just bear in mind that because of the Spanish and Arabic interpretation, that requires a bit of editing on our end before we can share it. So give us a few days for us to share the recordings, but it will be shared with you, I promise, along with other resources and everything, and that will be in a follow-up email after this session. Also, some of you have requested a certificate. That's absolutely possible. We'll share more information at the end of the program, so you can have the certificate if you need. As I said, I'm always available for questions and comments and assistance if you need, so you can email me anytime. The program is focused on 4 big blocks, 4 weeks. So this week we are introducing the theme of water and climate, water for climate action. It will be a presentation with Maggie and Jose today, and then a workshop on Thursday, more focused on the role of language in getting your message across. Then the next week we'll focus on water stories, and we'll have a panel moderated by Shay, who will welcome journalists and communicators and water experts from around the world, and then we'll have discussions around what makes a good story. And then that's that week. Next week on Thursday, the workshop is a bit longer to allow for more creative thinking around storytelling. The week after, week 3, will be around rethinking power, and we'll have a panel discussion organized by Makasa Looking Horse, who's an Indigenous representative from Canada, and she will set up a panel with people from her community. So I really encourage you to attend this session. And then the workshop that week will be with Data Fight, who's investigative journalist team who managed to bridge data and storytelling. And then the last week will be a panel discussion with people from Mexico, bridging the corporate power, and a discussion with a Peruvian farmer. So I really encourage you to attend to that as well. And then Thursday, the last Thursday, will hopefully end on a hopeful note around humor and comedy to advance climate action. I will share the full program with you again if you don't have it. Same, that will be in the follow-up email. And then just a heads up, more information will be shared eventually. Then in August, we often have an additional session before World Water Week to kind of summarize the discussions and lead to the World Water Week. And then this year, what I would really love to is that to make this session your own. So you will be able to share your stories or your project or something that is really close to your heart. The details of that will be shared in a few days. But just a heads up that early August we will call on to you. And then, of course, World Water Week, the 25th to 29th of August in Stockholm and online. You can already buy your tickets. Either you can come physically and we can meet there. That would be really good. There will be a gathering at the Grundfos Foundation booth there, where I would be really happy to meet all of you. But you can also register online, and it's for free. So I really encourage you to have all the insights that Maggie and Jose will talk about, and much more than that. We have, I don't know how many sessions, but that would really be a good way for you to dive in much deeper into what we're going to talk about today. All right, I guess I've talked a lot already. I hope you're excited for this week. If you want to let me know how you are feeling in the chat, please feel free to introduce yourself or just share an emoji on how you are feeling. Are you excited? Are you stressed? Are you nervous? Yeah, let me know with an emoji. And then as you do that, I would like to introduce our 2 speakers for today. So we have Maggie White. She's a senior manager for international policy and processes at SIWI. Maggie has worked for over 25 years in this sector, spanning from community-based development to urban water resilience and global engagement. Maggie is presently engaged in the preparation of the UN 2026 Water Conference, the UN System-Wide Water Strategy, the UNFCCC processes, the UNCCD, and the 2030 Agenda. That's a lot of acronyms that Maggie will dive into in a few minutes. And then following Maggie's presentation, we'll have José Pablo Murillo, who's the Secretariat of the Scientific Program Committee of World Water Week at SIWI. José joined SIWI in 2021. He's contributed to the Source to Sea program and World Water Week. He's expert in water and climate issue. He's worked with UNEP, GIZ, and Costa Rican authorities. So welcome, Maggie. Welcome, Jose. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Cécile. I will share my presentation now. I hope you can see it.
We can see
Yes, wonderful. Yes. Hello, everybody. I am very excited to be here with you today and also to see the diversity of participants we have online. It's going to be quite a deep dive into the journey that water has been taking when it comes to global processes. And as Cécile said, I've been here for quite some time, so I have a lot to share with you. But just be cautious that this is just the beginning of maybe for some of you of your journey, and I'm very happy to continue it with you. And if you have any more questions or ideas, or you would like to engage further, please do not hesitate to reach out to me for that. I'm also very grateful for this opportunity that's been given with the Greenfields Foundation on this topic and building up towards World Water Week, because it gave me a moment to reflect. We often think about what still needs to be done without remembering what has been done and where we're at. And I can say that giant strides have happened when it comes to addressing water and global processes. The first UN conference that actually highlighted water and the importance of water was in 1977, so over 50 years ago. And we can say that there's been baby steps in elevating water in the global processes, going towards the Millennium Development Goals, and then, of course, the right to water and sanitation, the Sustainable Development Goals, where we have a dedicated goal to water in SDG 6, and also trying to see water appearing in other SDGs. And of course, an International Decade for Water in 2018. So baby steps, I would say, for the first 40 years, but a real acceleration actually in the past 10 years, and especially the last 5 years. It was very exciting to actually, for once, see water again coming back to the highest level in global processes with a UN conference that took place in 2023 in New York under the leadership of the Dutch and Tajikistan. And very important outcomes of this conference, because up to now, water was not as highlighted or prioritized as much as we would aspire for, even though it's a pillar to reaching our sustainable development goals when it comes to environmental issues, social issues, or economic issues. The outcomes of this UN conference in 2023 was to say we need more gatherings and high-level meetings to discuss how water is being addressed, how decisions made around water, and more importantly, the implementation of water issues within the regions and the countries. And coming out of that is another UN conference on water that will be coming in 2026. That's under the leadership of UAE and Senegal, and then we'll have a third one just before the end of the 2030 agenda to see how we've progressed. Another very exciting element is the UN system-wide water strategy and for sanitation at the UN level, where there's a strong need to better coordinate and organize ourselves between member states and UN agencies in how we implement water. And the conference was that we had a dedicated special envoy for water and sanitation in Ms. Retno Matsuri, who is the face and the voice of water. So we have a water ambassador, which we've been missing. Water has progressed small but surely in the climate processes, and I'll come back to that in a bit more details. And tomorrow we actually have a very exciting launch of the first European water resilience strategy that will look at how Europe is addressing its water issues on the continent, but also internationally. But there are still big issues, and there's still a lot to do. There's giant gaps when it comes to addressing water in the global governance and global processes, but also what is happening on the ground in the countries. So even though in 1977 there was the first water conference and it actually launched the first international water drinking decade, we see that the aspiration was to give access to drinking water to all. Where are we in 2025, 50 years later? 2.2 billion people are still lacking access to adequate water, and 4 billion still lack access to sanitation. So we are more than off track when it comes to reaching the goals that we set up for each other and ensuring available and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And even more dire is that in 2040, 40% of the world's population may face risk of serious water scarcity. So how come? What is happening where, although the discussions and some decisions are being made around water at the global level, the situation on the ground is still very dire? We can, of course, talk about the increase in demography in the past 50 years from 4 billion to 8 billion. But most importantly, we need to look at the overconsumption and pollution of water resources when it comes to our needs. Yes?
Can I just interrupt you if you can talk a little bit slower so the
Oh,
interpreters have
sorry.
time to catch up? No problem. Thank you.
Sorry, I get very passionate and excited about this.
And we love that, but a bit slower so everyone can follow. Thank you.
Absolutely. So then we really need to look at how water is being addressed in the water-dependent areas, such as the production of food, in industries, in urbanization, energy, new technology, and construction. And of course, climate change has had a big impact and disrupted the management of our water resources. So the big issues that we're still facing today is a lack of political will to prioritize water and planning and investment. We're still missing a dedicated UN decision-making body that would overlook water issues, and therefore there's no clear accountability for the engagement that I've made. And what we often see is that water serves other sectors in a nexus configuration. I often say it's the underdog when it comes to delivering on food production in industries and energy. We prioritize food, energy, and industries over the management of our water in a sustainable way here. If we look closer also within the climate space, we would think that water is climate and climate is water. About 90% of climate manifestation is through water. But actually, even if at COP21 we opened up the discussions not only on reducing CO2 emissions, but also looking at what can be done in the adaptation space, we see that countries are not prioritizing water when they plan for how they're going to reach the 1.5 degree goal that was Celsius goal that was set up in the Paris Agreement. We can see that the analysis of the NDCs, so the nationally determined contributions, which is what countries aspire to do in reaching the Paris Agreement, water is hardly mentioned. And if it is, it's a very low priority here. This study that UNECE and the Water Convention and the Water Health Protocol published this year really shows the big issues that we're having when it comes to implementing water on the ground. Even in the adaptation space, which around the national adaptation plans, which is the other illustration that you see, we still see that water can be a small high priority, but only in water supply. We don't actually see the thinking around water for forest, for landscapes, for biodiversity. How do we use water when it comes to our mitigation measures or in energy production and developing renewable energies? And what does it mean to actually have friendly cities that actually are resilient to climate change by putting water at the center of the planification? So we're looking today to really build a water resilient climate action plan that puts water at the heart of the climate convention, but also the two other Rio conventions. And those Rio conventions, we often talk about the Earth Summit in '92, created the Convention to Combat Desertification, the UNCBD, the Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD, and the Convention to Combat Climate Change, the UNFCCC. And when we look at how to manage water, what we call good water governance, it's really about balancing between too dirty, too little, or too much water. And water is really, therefore, at the center if we want to implement these three Rio conventions. If we have good quality water, we have healthy ecosystems and biodiversity. If we have good water management, we avoid droughts and landscape degradation and can secure food production. If we make sure to have a resilient way of managing our water resources, then we avoid all the catastrophes and the cost of climate change on our societies and the economic consequences that come from it. So at the moment when we're thinking about reforming the UN system, really water can be a powerful tool to enable a more efficient implementation of our global agendas, but also in ensuring that underground it's more effective. So what is missing at the moment? At SIWI, we identify that we need to bridge the divides. We need to bring around the table and create opportunities for dialogues and build trust around these different needs that we have for water. So water for people, water for the environment, water for the economy, water for our sustainable development goals. We need to have a more polycentric way of governing our water resources and bringing the different sectors together, promoting knowledge and expertise and fostering collaboration and partnership. And that is the way we can accelerate the action and bridge the gap of the implementation on the ground. For doing that, we offer two pathways. One which is around World Water Week, and my colleague Jose will go into more details around that in his presentation. Another one where I invite you, and because World Water Week this year focuses on climate action, is to look into what's happening in the climate processes. Water is not mentioned in the Paris Agreement, but water has been stepping up in the climate discussions. And this is an opportunity that we have for all of us to gather, to promote, to discuss, and to advocate of how water is important for adaptation, mitigation, and just transition. There's been a small stepwise process. As you can see, I've detailed in how water has been elevating its place within the COP, the Conference of the Parties, which are overlooking how to implement decisions that are made and reach the Convention of Climate Change. And around that, we have key initiatives such as the Freshwater Challenge, Urban Water Resilience, and Water for Food and Resilient, Water for Resilient Food Systems. Those are key initiatives, multi-stakeholder, that have been building up. But really our flagship moment was last year at COP29 in Baku, when the Azerbaijani launched the first ever COP declaration on water, the Baku Declaration for Water and Climate Action. And coming out of that is a recognition that we need to address water at the highest level in climate discussions. And there will be a COP to COP platform, a dialogue space in order to address water in all its forms. And this is something that we're building towards for COP30. The Brazilian COP will be picking this up in the conversations, but of course there's other ways that we can also still stay involved. And water can be sometimes politicized, so it's still a very sensitive matter of how water is going to land in these multilateral discussions around COP30. What has been breakthrough for us is that we finally have water in negotiated texts, which is what the UNFCCC Secretariat is following, the countries are engaging in, and where they have accountability and reporting. And the Global Goal on Adaptation now has dedicated targets for water, and that enables us to have a global stock take to the Paris Agreement that actually shows how water is supporting to reach the targets laid out in the Paris Agreement. So we finally have a space where we can actually discuss, negotiate the importance of water in reaching our goals. And we're very excited now actually to see that the COP30 presidency with the UNFCCC Secretariat is looking to create one ambitious climate action. It will be a legacy of COP30 to really put the focus on implementation. And we're striving as a collective to ensure that water is addressed properly in that space. When I say we, it is the water community that comes together, that collaborates, that sends out strong messages, that works as a collective under the Water for Climate Pavilion that SIWI has been organizing and chairing since COP26, and also under the Marrakesh Partnership Action Agenda, which is where non-state actors can get engaged in the climate discussions. And we welcome you all very much to join us in this endeavor. The Water for Climate Pavilion has really been able to bring forward a collective voice of countries, supported by the Netherlands, the Germans, the British, Tajikistan, Senegal, and other key countries, in driving this voice with grassroots organizations, NGOs, the private sector, and UN agencies. And it's really important that we have all stakeholders gathered together in order to push the same messages, but also to engage in the different processes. The climate process is long, complicated. It's a stepwise process. So we really need to work as a collective in bringing forward the importance of water to implementing the Paris Agreement. I'm sharing with you also a few areas and spaces of what we've done at COP29. We've been able to enable a large number of participation on site, but also online, since we offer streaming of our sessions. Many sessions were organized on the Water for Climate Pavilion, but also a lot outside the pavilion, because what's important today and what will make a change is when we connect water with the other sectors, with the other areas. We often talk about the water box. It's important to talk to those outside the water box and work together and elevate water in their portfolios. We also have special water envoys that follow the official negotiations that are ongoing, and a WhatsApp channel with day-to-day information about what's happening at the COP. So if you're ever interested in joining us and want to know from a water perspective how the climate discussions are going, please join us here. And then we have throughout the year working groups that address key issues in connecting water to climate, where you can engage in a community of practice, where we share information, build partnerships, and influence policy and the negotiation work. So again, this cannot be done without the collective endeavor and engagement of all. We would love to have you join us to push water and highlight the importance of it, and especially accelerate the impact on the ground. There's many different ways. If you'd like to join is, of course, to become a member of the Pavilion, join our WhatsApp channels. For those who are in communication, media focal points, please reach out and become one of our envoys. You can also join a training session in preparation for COP30. Write about the water and climate intersection. Follow us online with our hashtag Water for Climate. And also at World Water Week, there will be a presentation of where we're at in water's pathway in the global processes, because a lot will be happening over the summer. And I'll be very happy to welcome you on site and online to deep dive into those different global processes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Maggie, for this great overview of all those global processes and where water is at globally. Really exciting, and somewhat also a bit worrying somewhat when you say that water is not really, like, we talk about water, but sometimes it's a bit ignored from the climate talks. I will welcome questions later. We'll hear from Jose after, and then we'll have a more open Q&A with Jose and Maggie. But before we do that, do ask your questions in the chat if you want, and then we'll collect them and we'll ask them after Jose's presentation. But before we do that, I have a quick poll for you, if I can find it. Just in terms of like from your communication or journalist perspective, what is your take on the international processes, and have you been involving and engaging in those international processes? Sorry. So you should see a poll popping up on your screens if you want to engage in that. And I'll give you a few minutes. So the questions are: how easy do you find yourself to engage in global processes like COP or the UN Water Conference, or even World Water Week? What are the challenges that you face when reporting on water issues? And then from your communicator slash journalist perspective, what would you need to engage more in those processes? And then I would really encourage you to think about those questions, because that's something we will discuss in breakout rooms after. So I'll give you just one more minute to reflect on these questions. And of course, you don't have to answer it. It's fully optional for you to reflect on this presentation. And Maggie, in the chat, there's a question about the WhatsApp channel. So maybe that's the kind of links that we can collect at the end of the session, and then we'll share that with you via emails. Or if you have the link handy to join the WhatsApp, maybe you can paste it in the chat, Maggie.
Yeah, I'll paste the website and the WhatsApp channel in the chat, because I see there's also an ask for the website of the Water for Climate Pavilion.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you for your interest and wanting to join.
All right, I think we can close the poll now. We see that I see there are a few people who are participating. I'll give you 30 more seconds and then I'll show the results because it's quite interesting to see the input. All right, I'll end now. And don't worry if you haven't had a chance to answer yet. Well, you'll have more chances to discuss with others. So if you look at the results, basically people don't find it too hard or too easy to engage. It's very much in the middle to engage in global processes. So there is some interest for sure, but it's not that particularly easy to engage either. And when you look at the reason why, it's the lack of access to information and the personal lack of personal scientific knowledge. So I guess it's really good to have somewhat good to see, because that's what this session, this Water and Communications program is about, to make sure we bridge those gaps. So it's quite interesting to see that. And I don't know if we have time maybe for one or two people to share, if someone wants to share their experience on how you could engage more in these processes. Does someone want to volunteer? I know it's a bit intimidating, the first session, to just be on the spot like that. Do we have a volunteer to share your experience as a journalist or communicator in interacting in those processes? Or you can also share in the chat.
Hello?
Yeah?
1 second, let me turn on my camera. Yeah, can you all see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
Yeah. Okay, just very briefly. My name is Adelaide or Della from the GIZ Natures program here in Tanzania. One of the challenges I had basically was not really being an expert. That is like number one, because my background's in computer science, and there are opportunities. For me, it wasn't really difficult to access these opportunities since I follow a lot of like water sector groups. I'm also part of the EWA, I'm an EWA member. But then the requirements are also like usually very high. So you either need to have like a master's degree in water resources governance or some water related program, or in some instances, if you would like to present a paper, let's say for us working in water projects in Tanzania or in like developing nations, you usually need to have an affiliation with either like a PhD holder. That would be possible, or your level of knowledge needs to be at least master's level, or the topics that are required are usually very too specific. So, I mean, I haven't honestly really actively tried to engage because also financially it doesn't make sense. It's like free work. There are scholarships that cover up to a certain extent, and yes, for us working for institutions like GIZ, you can have an agreement with your manager to cover some of these costs, but I mean, usually for people who don't have these access to opportunities, it's quite tough because the dynamic, I mean, coming from developing countries to kind of cover costs to attend, let's say, or to be, what do they call this, like an intern or some sort of traineeship for the World Water Week is usually still very high. Yeah, so those are some of the, yeah.
What you're saying is basically it's hard to access those spaces in terms of basic knowledge, and then to gain this basic knowledge, what you would need is more like time and financial support to educate yourself and to get training. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could put it that way, simply, like in summary. But for me, it was mostly, for us, usually people who work in communication, from my experience, are not really water experts, and you need to invest a lot of time and energy to get to that kind of level of expertise, you know.
And in this case, like what could help you to bridge that gap?
I mean, conversations like this. It was just by chance that I came across this water in communications training. I mean, to some extent, it also for you as an individual, we need to also kind of do online courses quite a lot, like on all of these Coursera courses and everything. But it's just a matter of interest. One, two, just get involved more, and having access to these kinds of platforms is easier for us to know. I mean, to connect with the right people. Yeah. So
Hopefully this training will give you at least get started.
Yeah, of course,
we know it's not everything, but thank you so much for sharing
exactly.
your experience.
Exactly.
Thank you. I see there's another hand. We'll have time for just like one more comment. Yeah, I don't know who was first. Sorry. Whoever raised their hand, just please.
I think Gabriela was first, I think.
Then go for it, Gabriela. Thank you.
Gracias. ¿Cómo están? Muy buenos días desde Lima, Perú. Yo soy Gabriela Corimanya, tengo ya más de 20 años trabajando en lo que es el sector agua. En realidad, no es la primera vez que participo en el curso de capacitación.
It's not the first time that I am here in these water courses. And precisely what you were talking about, the challenges in the country, honestly concerning us, the communicators, at a local level, not only in the capital city, it's a challenge. It's a big challenge because in the provinces outside of the capital city, Lima, to develop journalism and to communicate is not aligned with something with a specialization. Even here in the capital city, this water theme is still not thought much. There are journalists, yes, of course, they do think about water, but not as something of value, as a resource, what it means to provide the system, to distribute water, to have drinking water. And as a matter of fact, you know, this goes hand in hand with certain situations in certain locations that are not part of the capital city. People do not have safe water. It has to do with chlorination. You know, chlorine can be something basic. You cannot present this in an assertive manner. There's much rejection, and that's the big challenge. It has to do with communication. There's still much to be said. There is much to be taught as yet, but unfortunately, you know, there are other themes that distract everybody's attention, and we do not think on what our population needs. You know, I've been working for over 20 years. I've been working on what we call water roundtables, and we believe that people need more information. And of course, the communication is crucial. We have to do so. We have to talk about this, but there's a big gap, a broad gap. And hopefully, you know, courses like yours will be able to reach and make people understand. There's still much to be done, and that's the big challenge that we're facing here in our country.
Thank you, Gabriela, for your.
I have a question for Gabriela. Sorry, can I?
I'm sorry, we're running a little bit out of time, but maybe we will have networking after that. So maybe that's something we can. Yeah, we can address maybe after the next presentation.
Okay.
It was really interesting to have Gabriela's experience about the problem doesn't come from ourselves as communicators or journalists, but also from the audience. Like, how do we create interest in their audience, in their own life? How do we make water everyone's business, basically? And then yeah, so hopefully this training will also address that in another way. But yeah, for the sake of time, I'm just going to introduce. Really wanted to thank you, Gabriela and Adelaide, for your for your experience. And then I will welcome José Pablo Murillo on stage, on screen, for the rest of the presentation. And then if you have more questions, please type them in the chat, and then we'll address them after the presentation. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Cecile. Yeah, so I'm very happy to be able to contribute today to this introduction to the Water and Communications program with a short presentation providing some insights into World Water Week 2025. If I'm speaking very fast, just let me know so we can help our translator friends. And thank you to all the participants for joining today from all around the world. This is very exciting. So first, maybe let's start from the basics. If you're unfamiliar with World Water Week, it is the leading conference on global water issues held every year since 1991. This is a non-profit event. It's an important annual moment for collective action and urgent water conversations across boundaries. So consequently, World Water Week attracts a diverse mix of participants from different professional backgrounds and every corner of the world. So you can see some statistics from 2024 in these slides with representation from so many different countries and territories and the number of participants. So in 2025, we will have around 200 sessions of different formats like online, talk shows, on-site and online, and workshops. These sessions cover a wide range of different topics, and I will share some insights about what to expect for 2025. But besides these sessions, we will also have the opening and closing ceremonies and high-level panels. These are keystone sessions that will include high-level experts and decision makers who work on topics directly related to the theme of this year. We will also have the seminars, which form the scientific core of World Water Week, and I will share more about them shortly. We also have the Water in Business program, which focuses on water and sustainability from a business and finance perspective. And besides the session, there will be exhibitions, side events, and other activities around the week. So you can view the full program of World Water Week 2025 when it is launched June 5, so in 2 days. So coming back to the theme of World Water Week 2025, it is Water for Climate Action. So as the climate crisis accelerates, action is urgent, and it has been recognized more and more by scientists and decision makers and practitioners that water is key for mitigating greenhouse gas emissions, adapting to climate change, and fostering resilience. This is because water is not only the main medium through which climate change impacts human societies, whether it is through extreme weather events or slow onset climate change like changing rain patterns, but it is also a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and to carbon storage at the global scale. So considering this, SIWI believes that water professionals have a crucial role to play in this global effort because improved water management is a tool to help policymakers achieve their climate aims. Fresh water is needed for all ecosystem functions, including sequestering carbon, growing food, producing energy, and stabilizing the biome. However, fresh water alone cannot solve all the problems of the degradation of ecosystems. But water security and maintaining an environment that is able to retain water and facilitate natural processes such as ecosystem services are major contributing factors. Since previous water debates have concentrated more on adaptation, this World Water Week is a particular opportunity to discuss for the discussions on mitigation to catch up. So this year, the sessions will cover a wide range of topics that are directly related to water for climate action. So now, just to give you a bit of context, the theme for World Water Week is defined by the Scientific Program Committee, or SPC, and you can see this is the photo from the SPC in 2024 on site in Stockholm. So the SPC provides the foundational expertise for World Water Week. It is composed of between 16 and 18 experts from around the world in various fields and representing different stakeholders such as NGOs, private and public sector, financial institutions, academia, and research, among others. The SPC is chaired by John Lane, who is a leading expert on global water issues. Additionally, every year, around 8 young professionals under 35 years old are selected to join the SPC for a one-year term. And besides contributing to the theme of each year, the SPC also organizes the seminar series for each year. So now going a bit into the seminars, as I mentioned before, they form the scientific core of World Water Week. And each year, the SPC and SIWI organize between 7 and 9 seminars, and each one is composed of 3 sessions, which is an on-site and online session, an online session, and an on-site only session that is usually formatted as a workshop to increase participation. So the seminars for 2025 are 7, and I'm going to share a bit more detail about each of the seminars, just briefly introduce them. But you can find more information about the seminars in the digital platform once the program is launched on June 5. So first, Water for Food, addressing climate adaptation and mitigation. So while agriculture generates a significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions, farms and food production are also negatively affected by climate change. This seminar will explore how the policies, investments, and actions can simultaneously support mitigation and adaptation in agriculture, while also protecting water security at different scales. The next seminar, Mitigating Climatic Impacts Through Ecosystem Resilience. So I think we all know ecosystems are crucial for climate action. Aquatic ecosystems, wetlands, and forests can sequester vast amounts of carbon, boost biodiversity, and increase resilience. However, they are also vulnerable to climate change, of course, and human intervention. So this seminar will look into solutions that increase ecosystem resilience and also boost the mitigation of emissions. Then we have mitigating climate impacts through sanitation systems. Sanitation and wastewater systems emit significant amounts of methane, thus contributing to global heating. At the same time, these systems are vulnerable to climate impacts. In this seminar, they will focus on how improving sanitation systems to reduce, recapture, and reuse the emissions and increase their resilience can be an attractive investment. The next seminar, Water's Role in Decarbonizing the Global Energy Systems. Energy and water systems are interdependent, and this is projected to strengthen, especially due to the current trends in urbanization and climate change. And this seminar will discuss achieving an energy transition that distributes the costs and benefits of climate action equitably. The next seminar, Water Actions for Health and Climate Resilience. So climate change affects human health through extreme weather events, infectious diseases, mental health, and lack of access to food and water. This seminar will explore how water-related actions can protect and improve human health while addressing climate change. And second to last, we have strategic water and climate actions within planetary boundaries. This seminar will focus on how the 4 planetary boundaries more linked to water action, which are climate change, freshwater use, biodiversity integrity, and release of novel chemicals can contribute to a global transformation of water management that responds to climate change and stays within planetary boundaries. And last but not least, tracking outcomes of global water and climate conferences. So I think Maggie did a fantastic job of introducing before me these global processes. So as you know, there are these major processes devoted to climate change and water issues. During these events, participants can set targets, draft policies, promise actions. And so this seminar will look into how follow-up and accountability can be improved to enhance the outcomes and impacts of these conferences. So now we'll move on into the trends of 2025, and this is coming back to the other sessions outside the seminars. So in this slide, you can see a chart with a percentage of sessions per accepted category. And to give you some context, when a session organizer submits their proposal to be considered for World Water Week, they need to select a category that best represents the main focus of the session. The World Water Week team then reviews the session proposal, and if it is accepted, we can suggest to change the category if we think that maybe it fits better in another one. So for 2025, the top 5 most popular categories, you can see them on the slide, are ecosystems and nature-based solutions, water sanitation and hygiene or WASH, financing, business and stewardship, and policy work. Even though ecosystems and NBS concentrates a lot of sessions, you can see that anyway they are spread out in many different categories. And it's also important to keep in mind that some of these categories overlap at certain points. And some sessions might find it challenging to select their category as they might fit into more than one. So, there's different ways to cut the cake. But we use this as a helpful way to see the different main themes within the World Water Week. So in terms of ecosystems and nature-based solutions, as I said, is the most popular category. Water and ecosystems are intrinsically linked, and there is an increasing recognition about the role that they play in mitigation and adaptation. Some of the topics that the sessions will cover include incorporating nature-based solutions into disaster risk management, lessons learned from mangrove restoration in the Pacific for multiple benefits, global trends in investing in nature, the role of urban water bodies in climate action, and examples of how source-to-sea management can contribute to ecosystem-based climate action. In terms of WASH, this has been traditionally one of the focus topics in the water community. And of course, it's still very, very highly relevant for climate action. This year's sessions will explore how WASH can be made more resilient in the face of climate change, but also how it can contribute to both climate mitigation and adaptation, especially responding to extreme weather events. Access to financial resources is crucial to advance climate action. And sessions in this category will cover topics like incorporating water governance aspects into climate finance, lessons learned from using results-based financing for WASH services, incentivizing investments to increase drought resilience in low-income countries, and exploring financial mechanisms to enhance water security in Latin America and the Caribbean. Then we have sessions in the category of business and stewardship. They will look into how the private sector can be engaged in sustainable water management through different models, such as corporate water stewardship, public-private partnerships, and innovative finance. They will also share lessons learned from case studies in different regions and sectors like apparel, food, or beverage. And last but not least, water governance and policy work are, of course, very important. And several sessions will look into how water and climate can be integrated into different policies so that these can be translated into action. Then next, I wanted to share with you the tracks for 2025. So besides the categories, at World Water Week, we also have tracks that are curated with partners and group sessions focusing on a specific topic or issue, but they are working across different categories. So the tracks for 2025 are Indigenous Peoples, Asia, Latin America and the Caribbean, and the Youth Roadmap, which is curated by SIWI. And the partners for the tracks of this year are the governments of Australia and Canada, the Asia Pacific Water Forum, and the Inter-American Development Bank. And I would like to close by encouraging you to engage with World Water Week 2025. The early bird tickets are available until tomorrow, June 4, but also keep in mind that online participation is free. Again, the full program will launch on June 5, so be sure to check our website and also make sure to subscribe to the newsletter, follow World Water Week on social media to receive the latest information. So thank you so much for your attention, and over to you, Cecilia.
Thanks a lot, Jose, and thanks for giving an overview of what's happening at World Water Week. I saw a lot of conversation in the chat while you were doing that, and a lot of interest in the topics. So I think now we can open up for questions. If someone wants to jump in with a question either to Maggie or to José. And yeah, Boluwaji?
Yes, Boluwaji.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you very much, Maggie and José, for the presentations. Very valuable. And this effort to, to integrate water and climate change efforts and discussions, I think is really important. I was wondering, I didn't hear so much about the role of sanitation in the climate change mitigation efforts and discussions. What are your thoughts about that? Especially considering, for example, abattoirs, which are slaughterhouses for cows. We're trying to work on a project because we found that in Lagos State, just one of the 36 states in Nigeria, 240,000 kilograms of cow dung is produced daily without any, holistic method to manage it. So there's a big role there for sanitation to actually contribute to the efforts of the climate change sector. What are your thoughts?
I can take that one first, and maybe if you want to add some things, Jose, afterwards. Thank you so much, Buluwaja, for that question, actually, because I can go into more details and we can talk about it, outside of this conversation also. But it's been a journey to get water in the climate discussions, and I really also want to thank one of the participants who expressed that frustration and the difficulties for bringing water into the climate processes. And one of the main issues is that in the beginning, well, actually, water people did not see climate as a topic for themselves. And then the climate community did not see how water, especially since it was mainly seen from delivery of water and sanitation services, how that has an impact on climate and why water should be part of the discussion. So it's been a long process to actually bring water in the climate space. Of course, coming in through the adaptation angle, which is the more relevant one, but also making the case for mitigation. And this is something that we've really been striving at. We have a
Hemos estado luchando al respecto. Tenemos un informe de mitigación del agua que SIWI produjo conjuntamente con otras agencias.
التعاون ما بين من يدفعون بهذا الاتجاه. من المهم أن يكون هناك جهود لنركز على هذه النقطة لأن الأمر لا
climate change is really about the systemic change that we need to achieve. So right now, water and sanitation is part of the discussion. When I mentioned the global goal on adaptation, we actually have in there targets specifically addressing water supply, sanitation, and also the role that we can have in reducing CO2 emissions from nature-based solutions, for example, and looking at the whole cycle instead of being in a very sectorial, siloed approach to a lot of our issues. So things are progressing, but very slowly. We need to be able to take this front on from all angles, but we also need to adapt each other's language. I think it's really interesting here, and maybe this is something that will come forward in the next sessions, is how do we talk to each other when we're from different communities? When we were going to the climate space and saying water is important, they're like, well, no, that's a humanitarian element. It's about drinking water and about open defecation. It's like, no, it's actually about adaptation and mitigation solutions. And then there's interest. Then the conversation opens up, and then we can come forward with our data, knowledge, and our solutions also. So it's ongoing. And for the moment, I would say the case for water and mitigation is not high enough. We mainly have data around water services, which represent 10% of emissions. because of leaks and energy, but we really can make a much stronger case with numbers. Unfortunately, we have to talk with data and numbers and economic factors to support it to actually explore in other areas when it comes to sanitation and waste management. So we'd be very happy if you have information, policy recommendations, or documents, please share them with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie, and thank you for these questions, because it does highlight the interconnectedness of the issues. It's not just about this slaughterhouses in Lagos, but it connects.
No color, it has no shape, it has no taste. We never think about it until there's a crisis. So we've always thought we had an abundance of water in quantity and in quality, and now we're realizing that no, we will not have access to quality water and quantity also for all our needs in a certain area because everything is being disrupted. So water is being more elevated. It's little bit more being reported by journalists, but only in crisis situations, unfortunately. We're still not seeing that entering the water lens for all our different sectors and our different needs is the way to ensure sustainability, and it's a way to ensure a thriving, healthy planet. So when I say underdogs, when you look at the ag sector, water serves agriculture, but we hardly ever talk about the overconsumption. We mentioned 70% goes to agriculture, but we never really talk about the consequences of 70% going to agriculture. We never really talk about the consequences of the pollution that is done by the food and ag industry on water resources, on ecosystems, and on the full water cycle, because we haven't had a UN agency that defends water, that keeps countries and the other UN agencies and programs accountable for what is being done and not being done in the water space. So it has had, unfortunately, as you saw from my presentation, water needs to promote itself on its own. We have a water conference. What would be amazing is that all major conferences dealing with food, with energy, have a strong water pillar. So we talk about the trade-offs if we don't manage properly our water resources to serve these other arenas, and also, most importantly, the co-benefits. So this is why I was saying that creating spaces for dialogue, for cooperation, builds trust, builds understanding, and that's how we are going to be able to manage the shifts in the availability of water and quality and quantity that we need for everything. I mean, in life is water dependent. I don't want to say water is life. I'm saying that everything in life is water dependent, and we cannot progress as we're doing so. And we're really coming to a critical point. Jose mentioned the source to sea approach. Our oceans are dying because of all the waste coming from on land into the oceans through the rivers that are transmitting it. And we don't know what to do with the micropollutants. We don't know if we will ever have enough quality water in the next 20, 30 years to come. It's a very dramatic situation. So water needs to be really brought into the conversation in the other areas and not be seen as this available resource that Mother Nature offers us and that we can do as we please, but really see as an essential resource to ensuring the flourishment of our planet. And also, we haven't spoken about peace and security, whether it's climate security or migration. I mean, it's a huge impact at all levels. So to avoid the water crisis, water needs to be elevated, and not only on its own, but most importantly, elevated in all the other discussions. So we come to what the Global Commission on Economics of Water has coined, is that water is seen as a global common good that really keeps the societal, economic, and environmental equilibrium of our planet healthy and thriving.
Thank you, Maggie. I think Mohammed has a question as well, or you had your hands up.
No, I have a question, yes, to Maggie. Thank you for the opportunity. W loss specialist. I have a question regards to World Bank data and International Water Association data. 30% of water which is treated and pumped is lost before it reaches the end user. So in the World Water Week, is this a part of the team to discuss about the losses of the water which are treated and pumped and before it reaches the customer or the end user, 30% of water is lost through leakage or illegal or so many technical issues.
It was a bit hard to understand. Yes, your sound was a bit broken, but if I summarize if you can summarize like in just one sentence, yes.
Yeah. So the World Bank Association says, World Bank and International Water Association, they say that 346 million cubic of water is lost every day, which comes around 30% of water being treated and pumped in the distribution network of overall in the world. So is this a part of agenda in the World Water Week where we can use the latest technology like AI and ML to mitigate these losses?
So your question is about how technology or latest technologies is addressed at World Water Week, if that's a topic.
Yeah, because it is directly linked with the greenhouse gases, because we have used a lot of electricity to pump the water and treat the water. So let's say 30% of water is already lost before it reaches the customer.
The user, yeah. Jose, is that something you can answer?
Yeah, I mean, I can't share the specific details of the sessions because, like I said, there are around 200 sessions, so I don't know all of them by heart, even though I had to read most of the proposals that were submitted. But however, I do remember that there were several sessions focused on technology and innovation, including AI, and how these can be incorporated into improving water management. So I think there's something there that will be coming through. Yeah.
And then following up on this, have you seen a trend over the years? Or I guess you haven't been involved with World Water Week for so long, but is that really like a hot topic these days to talk about technology and how new technology can address the issue? And then I guess the other side of the coin is how does new technology does it create new problems, or does it open to more solutions? Or if you see what I mean, like, is it something that is addressed at World Water Week as well?
Yeah, of course, this is part of the discussions. I mean, all these new technologies are tools to improve, right, water management, the access to water, also sanitation and hygiene. But then there's the discussion of how to incorporate them into water management, water governance, and how to make them accessible in middle and low income countries. And what are the potential negative impacts of this, and how to solve this or address this so that new technologies don't have these negative impacts or are implemented in a more equitable way. Something that has been a lot in the discussion is preventing maladaptation, right? So if we build a dam to provide safe drinking water to a population, but then this means that we're also taking important resources from downstream, for example, and this can affect, for example, coastal mangroves or wetlands that are protecting coastal communities from storms and this type of events. So yeah, there's a balance that has to be made, and this is part of the discussions for sure at World Water.
Thanks, Jose. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question?
I just wanted to add to Mohammed's remark because I think he introduced AI. So this is again a clear example of how do we talk about co-benefits and trade-offs. Well, AI can really help in chasing leaks and improving the efficiency of the water service. So enhance reducing CO2 emissions from energy and water loss also. They're very high consumers in water too, to maintain these data centers. And some of these centers are also being put in in drought areas also, or in desertic land areas. So the balance, and again, it's the dialogue. How do we meet the needs that we have without creating more problems or hindering other solutions too? And that's why things should not be addressed and siloed, but really looking at the system that's in place in order not to create a more grave situation. Sorry, I stepped in, Cecile.
No, perfect. Oh, I'm just lost in my windows. Yeah, no, that very good addition, Maggie. And since we're with you, there was a question that kind of asked as well, like how you addressed it a bit, but like, is there something around the NDCs? And have you seen the national determined contributions that are being revised this year? Is there an analysis on how those NDCs have evolved over time, or how does that impact the water talks these days?
So the graphs I showed are from a report that just came out this year in April 2025, when UNECE, the Water and Health Protocol, and the Water Conventions published an analysis of NDCs and the NAPs. So there is a slight. The NDCs are the intentions. It doesn't mean that's what happens afterwards in the implementation. So this is where we have to be very careful also in what is being addressed. So there has been an increase in how water is being addressed in the NDCs, but as you saw in the graph, it's still very limited or not at all addressed. And as I indicated, unfortunately, it's not addressed in the other topics or areas that are water dependent. So we don't see indication when it comes to better water management in the food section of the NDC or in the energy section. Most of the renewable energies are very water dependent also, and that is not being addressed in them. So there is a slight increase. The national adaptation plans definitely have a bigger focus on water, but we're very, very far from the recognition that it needs as its own, but also as a cross-cutting element to reaching the goals that the countries set themselves up in their NDCs, and then in the implementation of what we're going to be calling them now climate actions moving forward. So, and as I mentioned, that is where we also see the gap. The global conversations, the global processes are picking up water, the transmission of that into investment, into this being prioritized at the national level, into intergovernmental sectors working together and planning together, that is still not taking place or picking up speed at the level that it needs to.
Thanks, Maggie. I want to take a last question from Sue. After that, you will still have time to talk more in breakout rooms. Well, you'll get to talk to each other, share expertise with each other. And of course, I see that there's been a lot of comments and questions in the chat, and I want to make sure we will export the chat at the end, and we'll send questions to Maggie and Jose so they can answer in writing, and we'll share that with you as well, with along with the recording and other resources. But first, Sue, if you want to ask your question.
It's a little bit different because I'm from a so-called advanced Western country, in other words, the UK. But our particular problem is that 50, 60 years ago, our water was privatized. And so we have about 8 to 10 private companies which are supposedly bound by a regulator, Ofwat, and also to a lesser extent by the Environment Agency. However, over the last 14 or 15 years especially, the water, the profits that were a certain percentage of were supposed to pay for ongoing mitigation and especially upkeep and renewal of infrastructure hasn't been done. And so what is happening now is every one of our rivers is completely polluted with sewage because the water supply and the sewage is not being separated in the outfalls. As a communicator, I haven't got the faintest idea how I would start to address, first of all, the vilification by the press, which is justified. Nobody wants sewage in their river. Nobody can swim in many of the rivers and the seas around the UK. how we educate the public, which is used to just having water on tap. It comes in, it goes out, sewage is there, etc., etc. So how we would get the public to trust again, not only any sensible government proposals, one of which has just come through this morning, suggesting that less regulation but more sensible regulation would be the answer, and getting people to understand what it means to continue with these privatized companies, because nationalization would bankrupt the country. And so as an educator, I wouldn't have as a communicator, I would not know where to start.
I see. I see that more as a comment that also links to education. And there were another comment in the chat about how education should be its own subject in school, to make kids aware very, very early about how water connects everything, just like Maggie and Jose pointed out. I see, Maggie, you unmuted yourself. Maybe you had something to add there.
I mean, I completely agree with you, Sue, on that point. It's really the dire situation that we end up in, where we've taken this water resource for granted, and haven't really thought about what it means and the needs we have around it. And again, unfortunately, we have to be in a critical situation for it to be addressed. But it's always, again, we often spoke about doomsday, 0 day in Cape Town, where they were going to a dire situation. But there's so many cities and so many countries, and the UK is really getting there. The level of water is really going down in the rivers. And so you're really in critical situations all the time, but we're not fixing it. We come in, we try and find a solution for a few weeks, and then we go back to business as usual again, because we don't really recognize and elevate how it's unsustainable what we've been doing. And we're starting to see more information about the cost of inaction is higher than the cost of action. So hopefully getting more of those financial data will actually help to reprioritize and do differently. But until then, more education, more public awareness, more information in the schools, in the media. Also, I mean, we don't have any bloggers, or we don't have any influencers that are promoting, water issues at the moment that inspire our kids too. So I think it's really at all levels recognizing how precious and important this resource is for all our needs.
Thank you, Maggie. And again, I really want to thank everyone for your very interesting comments and reflections, and the different of perspective depending where you're from. A very, very rich discussion, both live and also in the chat. For the few minutes we have left of the meeting, I would encourage you to break into small rooms, and for that, to make sure we pair you with people you can communicate with. We have a quick poll, so you can just select the language you want the conversation to be in, and then you will be put into these rooms. So if you can select English, Spanish, or Arabic, and then that's just to put you in breakout rooms. And then, of course, that's optional. If you can participate, that's great. So you can exchange experience, contacts if you want, tips. And for the guiding questions of these breakout rooms, of course, you can simply introduce yourself, what you're working on, what brought you here. Otherwise, I have these questions in the chat that I'm trying to paste. Okay. Sorry about that. But basically reflecting on this whole session and what we talked about a bit earlier, but as a communicator, how can we interact in those international spaces? Do you have tips on how to get this knowledge, on how to bridge those gaps? What has worked in your in your work before. So I'll end the poll now. If you're not in the room and you wish to be in the room, please let me know. We'll stay here. The interpreters as well stay in the main room. But if you need anything, just come back to the room and then we'll figure it out. Shay, it's the first time first session. We're figuring this out. Well, we're gonna create breakout rooms now with your language options as I'm pasting the questions in the chat. Up. And then here you go. So you should be able to choose the room you're assigned to. If you are not assigned and you wish to join the room, please let us know and then we can assign you. And I forgot to mention you have about 10 minutes and then or not even, a few minutes and then we'll come back. Bukhari, I see your questions about French interpretation. Maybe next year. It depends on many things, but we know it's been requested by a few people, so we might introduce French interpretation next year.
60 minutes, they'll be back here. Everyone should be back. 60 seconds.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right, welcome back. I see everyone coming back slowly. I hope you had rich discussions and you got to learn from each other a little bit. I fully understand I might have been a bit rushed for today. Again, as I said, like that's the first time we tried the breakout rooms with so many people. So I really appreciate your patience and understanding with us. As you're all coming back and we are at time, I really wanted to thank you all for your time, for your interest, for your participation. As I said, the recordings will be shared with you in a few days. Please bear with us as we do the minimal editing that is needed. You have my email if you have any follow-up questions. We will share your questions from the chat with the panelists and they can answer the critical questions. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing some of you, most of you on Thursday for the workshop on language with Georgette Marcadet-Keen and for the rest of the sessions. So thanks a lot, everyone. And you will have a quick poll when you close the session. Please leave us your feedback so we can improve the rest of the sessions and next year, of course. Thanks a lot, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.